Welcome back to the Unredacted Truth, where we fill in the missing gaps in the world's largest scandals and mysteries. In a world of rumors and theories, my job is simple: uncovering the truth underneath the glitter and the grime. We are exposing a pattern: protection, power, predators, structures built not on justice, but on silence, fear, and impunity. We're not talking theory, we're talking court records, stamps, dates, testimony, and a system that, to this day, continues to fail the public and protect the predators among us. Let's get to it.
My people, it is now time we pivot to the story that is Bill Gates. Now, the story of Bill Gates is not the story of one man, but the story of many men. And today, we look at Bill Gates, Jeffrey Epstein, and a name that may be new to a lot of you, Boris Nikolayk. Okay, so one of the cases that I looked at was in USVI was a RICO case. Denise George brought a RICO case for corruption against the Epstein estate, as well as the Virgin Islands government, which is why she got fired. Not the point. But at that time, I had no idea who Boris Nikolayk was. So, of course, I went in to investigate who in the world is this Epstein estate. And it was also the time when they kept telling us that the Epstein estate was providing emails and documents to the House Oversight Committee, hand over foot, all BS. Anyway, so I went in to research who's the Epstein estate. This is the three of them. Darren K. Endicke, who is a lawyer, works at the Palator Law Group. We have Richard D. Kahn. He is an accountant, and he works with Argent Wealth Management. And then we have Boris Nikolayk. At the time, before they knew that this shit was going to hit the fan and the truth would come out everywhere, Boris Nikolayk was written as a member of the World Economic Fund and part of a biomedics company. Now, the companies I see listed above, these are all Epstein Enterprise or Epstein Companies, LLCs, that he created and used that were also being sued by Denise George for corruption. Among those, as you can see, is the Southern Trust Company. We're going to get into Southern Trust Company, but let me finish introducing you guys Boris Nikolayk. Now, kids, this is exactly why it's so important to show your work and keep your work. Because between November and today, now March 2026, things that I was able to find in November have been wiped off the internet. It looks like the WEF, World Economic Fund, and Boris are trying to do some cleanup with his image and have wiped a lot of things off. But this is why it's good to always keep your work, because we're using the deck that I had when I worked on that story the first time around. In November 25, when I was working on the following story, was the very first time I heard the name Boris Nikolayk.
Virgin Islands Governor Albert Bryan Jr. has terminated VI Attorney General Denise George. Bryan released a statement saying he relieved George of her duties this past week, while he did not provide a reason for her termination.
New fired Virgin Islands Attorney General Denise George, who was investigating Jeffrey Epstein-related cases until last December, when she was let go days after suing J.P. Morgan Chase about alleged
Maureen Comey, daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, has just been fired from her job as federal prosecutor in Manhattan, a position she's held for nearly a decade. Maureen Comey is known for prosecuting someone you might have heard of, that guy, Jeffrey Epstein, and someone else that you might have heard of, Ghislaine
James, and that's where he has his complex where he lives, which is his official residence as well. And that these young girls and women were subject to sexual assault, sexual exploitation through coercion, false imprisonment, where the passports at some points were taken away. The actions were just reprehensible. And it was quite a number of women, and we found.
Who you just saw speaking there was the former Attorney General of USVI, Denise George. We also had a period during the Epstein cover-up where anybody who dared to investigate Epstein after his death, left, right, and center was just getting fired. Comey to Dennis George, everybody was just getting fired in an attempt to not release the Epstein files. But here we are. Anyway, during that video, what was happening was Denise George sued the USVI government members, specifically Cecile Dijon and the First Lady, Cecile Dijon, her husband, who was the governor at the same time, a few other officials, including Stacey Plaskett. I'm sure some of you have heard the name Stacey Plaskett. She was a Democratic representative and was shown everywhere as a supporter of Epstein. He paid, I believe, off the top of my head, was like 25 or 30K to her campaign, whatever. Not the point of the story. But she sued the Epstein estate and those officials for corruption's legal case. Now, at that time, I had no idea who the Epstein estate and the Epstein enterprise was. These three are the Epstein estate and co-conspirators. At least that's what the U.S. Virgin Islands and Dennis George categorized them in this RICO case. The enterprise is a series of LLCs, some connected to the planes. Again, this was in November. I'm trying to remember exactly. I believe Nautilus and JEG definitely were connected to GE, JEG Inc. were connected to the planes. And I think NES as well was connected to the planes. But he also had some trust as well. But these are basically the companies that were listed in Denise George's lawsuit. And we also got to meet the estate. And these are the three co-executors of the Epstein will. And that was Darren K. Indicky, who is a lawyer, Richard D. Kahn, who is an accountant, and Boris Nikolayk. At that time, something that is no longer available, if you go check, you will not find it. But at that time, Boris also had his own page on the UE forum as well, that led to his own company. Okay, small detour before we get to Boris's information and page. This is Larry Viscosi. I know I've mentioned earlier in videos that Larry Viscosi was a board member on some of these LLCs that were specifically connected to the planes. Larry was his pilot. Took over after David Rogers as the head pilot. So JEG Inc. and Freedom Air Petroleum, though the real owner of these LLCs was Jeffrey Epstein, he had Larry Viscosi on there. And as some of the other trusts and companies that I did show you, where it was a combination of Epstein, Indicky, and Kahn, or Epstein, Indicky, Kahn, and Viscosi, and Larry. So they're all board members on the LLC. Now we get to Boris. When I first checked out Boris, this is what I saw. Boris Nikolayk, fashion designer in Serbia. The first guy to capture Virginia when she was, I believe, 13 or 14 was Ronald Eppinger. Well, Ronald Eppinger modeling. Les Wexner, Jeffrey Epstein through Les Wexner, Jean-Luc Brunel, and other people modeling. Mark Epstein started a modeling agency. So I wasn't that surprised when I saw Boris Nikolayk, fashion designer. Makes sense. But then again, now it does look a little bit different currently. Today, when you search for Boris Nikolayk, it shows this image of Boris and Bill Gates. In November, it wasn't connected to the Wikipedia per se, but it was further down. At some point, I noticed there's a Boris Nikolayk, but this Boris Nikolayk is with Bill Gates. And I'm like, oh, then it must be a different Boris Nikolayk. But then I realized it is the same man. That looks like the same man. So, okay, so then I keep researching Boris Nikolayk of Epstein. It says Boris Nikolayk is a scientist, right? Actually, this is the whole journey. First, I'm wondering whether it's the Serbian fashion designer, when I saw this article. So I clicked on the article, and this was a Fox News article done in 2019. Who is Boris Nikolayk, Epstein named executor, former Bill Gates advisor? And I was like, But he's a fashion designer. What is he advising Bill Gates on? This talks about a completely different Nikolayk. It says Nikolayk, 49, is a physician who completed a postdoctoral training at Harvard Medical School, where he also served as an assistant professor. Words. Remember the last one, it said he served as the professor's assistant. Now it's saying assistant professor. He also previously served as chief advisor for science and technology. And I'm like, when did this fashion designer, because the pictures are the same at this point. So I go back to Wikipedia. This is Boris's Wikipedia. And I realize it says Boris died in April 2008.
Live update. As I was editing this, it's now March 12th when I recorded this. This was last week. I believe it was maybe the 6th or the 5th over the weekend. There's been some new changes. So you can no longer access Boris Nikolayk's Wikipedia the way that I could. Why I noticed that is because I wanted to get a better screenshot about his death age or death date. But you can no longer, his picture has now, see, April 5th. His picture has now been taken off Wikipedia. It's not connected anymore apart from this tiny little thumbnail that I guess they haven't had the time to fix yet with their web people. Now, the other thing is that wasn't there before. Now there's all of a sudden pages for Boris MD. But the freaking idiot, it's still the same freaking picture as before with the freaking Serbian dude. So whoever he's paying to do this is not moving fast enough. Now there's all of a sudden Boris MD.
Very confused. But then I go on and go to the World Economic Forum. Why it's so important that you keep your work, kids? Because on there, luckily, I saved this for us. This is the original World Economic Forum post page, whatever, of Boris Nikolayk. That is now gone. It could be they took it down because the Epstein files are coming out finally right now, and the World Economic Forum wanted to distance themselves from it. Or it could be that they found out that this man is not a physician, maybe an investor, but I don't believe Boris is a physician. And the other thing that made me laugh so hard, I love the fact that this man supposedly died in April 2008, according to his Wikipedia. The other thing is that it looks like he put on glasses. The only difference between Boris Nikolayk here and Boris Nikolayk's World Economic Fund picture was that he put on glasses and he looks slightly younger. That's what actually got me confused the first time, because I was looking at this picture with the glasses and the other picture of him and Gates. Why am I pointing like it's too far away? I was comparing this and this. Well, not that. I was comparing this picture, Boris Nikolayk MD, with this picture, Serbian fashion designer. I was like, maybe did he just put on glasses? Is that it? And it looks like, yeah, April 5th, 2008. Literally just put on glasses. So this man seemed to have killed himself on Wikipedia and the internet in 2008. Why do I believe that he killed himself on Wikipedia and the internet in 2008? Because I have proof that this is what they do. But before we go there, let me quickly show you Biomedics Capital. This is Biomedics Capital. It was so hard for me to figure out what they did in the beginning. Superior therapeutics and diagnostic delivery models. Last time I remember seeing something about like genome sequencing or DNA copying manipulation is what they're looking to do for biomedics. But again, at that time, when I looked for biomedics, there was a company portfolio and page with Meet the Team and a lovely picture of Boris Nikolayk, as well as a partner, and I believe maybe her name was Anna, or no, Julia, maybe. I believe it could have been Julia. But they had a picture of both of them on the Biometrics Capital website. Now, do they know? They've wiped Boris off the Biomedics Capital website. But Thank God I did not know how to leave a stone unturned, because I then found this little ditty that they haven't wiped out from the internet. I kept digging, so I was able to find this old biomedics investor document that states, so it has name managing director for biomedics, founded in 2016, Dr. Boris Nikolayk and Julie Sunderland. Biomedics Company, a for-profit venture investing in transformational, innovative intersection of healthcare and technology. They have changed it a lot, because when I read it, it was about it was gene sequencing and manipulation, which I thought was really creepy because it reminded me of eugenics. There we go. I thought it was really creepy because they were talking about DNA sequencing and manipulation and recreation, which really creeped me out because not only that it's connected with the World Economic Fund, it reminded me a lot of eugenics. It seems like between November, when I was looking up this information, and now they have also cleaned up the actual company profile. Now, let's see, what else do I have here? Boris, I already named. Okay, so back to Boris's story. Our phantom, our zombie physician who rose from the dead in 2008 and became an expert in gene sequencing. Boris Nikolayk, Richard D. Kahn, and Darren K. Endicke, all three of them were Jeffrey Epstein's co-executors, as you can see from this article. But that's not the interesting part. This is where it gets super sketchy. So, on August 8th, 2019, exactly 2 days before he was found dead in his Manhattan cell, Epstein signed his new will. This new will valued his entire estate at over $577 million. He created a completely new trust called the 1953 Trust after his birth year, and assigned power of attorney and executor power of attorney over to Richard D. Kahn and Darren K. Endicke, as well as Boris Nikolayk as the co-executors of the will. Frankly, from the past few days of being knee-deep in email correspondence, Epstein's emails, Epstein and Boris seem to be very, very close. He at times calls Epstein his younger brother, which is Boris is a lot younger than Epstein, so of course it's fastidious, but he refers to himself as Epstein's older brother, refers to himself as Epstein's uncle at times. They seem like they're best buddies. So people freaked out because the 1953 trust, moving his assets into an offshore trust, was very deliberate. And also the fact that he died 2 days later definitely would complicate the whole process. Part of Epstein's plea deal, remember when we read the NPA, was that if anybody, a verifiable victim, sued him, Epstein was not able to fight that lawsuit. He kind of just had to plea out and settle. Anyone who could be confirmed to be a victim of Epstein. So, moving his entire estate into a private offshore account definitely would have made it very difficult for the victims to collect money, especially since he died 2 days later. Now, we don't know why his attorneys advised him 2 days before he was found dead to switch over his account, but he did. So now we're in 2020. Epstein's dead. The three of them are now $577 million richer. The trusts are set. Money is protected from the victims until release of the USVI, the amazing Attorney General. So Richard, Attorney General and USVI former, she got fired because of this case. And she got fired. The case got dismissed. They thought they could skip justice, but we're bringing it back. USVI, so Denise Richards in 2020 then filed a RICO case against the estate, Endicke Kahn, and other Epstein-owned entities, which I just showed you. Do we want another refresher? Sure, instead, we have 1953 Trust, Plan D, Southern Trust Company, Great St. James Financial Trust Company. This is not all of them, by the way. JEG, we saw See, the other one's not even on here. Like, it was a bunch of LLCs that they had. So these are the ones. Southern Trust Company is the important one that we're working on. She was suing them under the RICO case, alleging that Darren Indicke and Richard Kahn acted as captains of criminal enterprise in their capacities as attorney and accountants because they controlled the financial structure that paid for the trafficking activities, managed hundreds of bank accounts, authorized suspicious wire transfers, plus facilitated forced marriages for immigration purposes. So 2020, they think they're fine. Because Denise Richards brought this RICO case, it ended up with everything, like their financial transactions and secrets coming up. So before we go into Southern Trust Company and the Bill Gates connection, let's quickly go over the USVI RICO. So in 2020, Denise George, while she was still able to act in good faith and do her job, representing the USVI government, started this RICO case anchoring Epstein as a criminal organization. She called it the Epstein Enterprise. As we see here, she stated that through this enterprise, many young women and girls were trafficked, they were raped, they were sexually assaulted, and held captive on Little St. James, Sin Pedo Island. Now, Darren K. Indicke and Richard D. Kahn, as co-executors of Jeffrey Epstein's estate, were each added individually to the RICO case because Denise George and the Attorney General's office in the USVI had supposedly obtained information regardless of Indicke Kahn and their refusal to cooperate. They had enough proof to make them to charge them with this RICO. The information that Denise and the Attorney General's office received, revealed, showed that the three of them were captains of the Epstein Enterprise. That's what she called them, captains. Because the information showed their direct participation in virtually everything. Business operations, financial activities, trafficking network, you're going to see when it comes to Boris, at least for sure, as well as facilitating forced and fake marriages for immigration purposes. Denise's RICO suit went on and stated that Epstein Enterprise defendants, Indicke Kahn, Boris, used deception, fraud, and coercion to entice and lure vulnerable girls, some as young as 13 years old, into human sex trafficking with promises to help them and their families pay for school, healthcare, or other financial needs. Epstein, along with his other associates, carried out and concealed his scheme. So you guys have heard me say it before many times, especially with Gates and his philanthropy and the Gates Foundation, Save the Children, is that this is why I was so worried about it, because looking at this lawsuit, we learned that charity philanthropy work was one of the biggest and main drivers for Epstein and the grossness to find and hunt down and locate their victims, vulnerable, at-risk children and families that could be easily manipulated. Epstein didn't just do this in Eastern Europe, like us to think. He did not just go to Serbia and Slovakia and Russia to find girls. Epstein did the exact same thing in Boston, in New York, Hilton Head. We just read it. Same thing in the United States. He did as he did in other Eastern European countries, was to find girls who don't look damaged, who are not too jaded yet, not on drugs, not completely broken yet, at risk, hard life, hard family, that he could further damage and destroy himself. So these two bossos, Richard Kahn, helped him build a number of shell corporations and LLCs to hide and conceal what they're doing, the trafficking organizations as well as the money. But it doesn't stop there. It is 2019. Jeffrey Epstein is arrested. Victims popping out of the woodwork left, right, and center. Epstein's lawyer and asset managers, Richard Indicke Kahn, I call him Indicke Kahn, both of them. Indicke Kahn file an expedited motion for establishment of a voluntary claims resolution program within the USVI Superior Court. It's independent. They're the only people who are handling the oversight for these claims and this money. And it's voluntary because they're creating it for themselves. And it's a resolution program for a singular purpose: to resolve sexual abuse claims against Jeffrey Epstein. Sounds great on paper, right? Wrong. What was it actually? This voluntary, what do they call it? Voluntary claims resolution program was simply a way to track all the victims. Everybody who now had any accusations against Jeffrey Epstein or the associates or any of the co-conspirators, now they would have their information and be able to track them using this voluntary claims resolution program. The other thing is that once they would track them, they tracked your information. First step was the threats, as we saw with the last FBI interview and we've heard many times over. If just threats will not work, then it will pay you. These predators knew absolutely everything because they had the settlements, they knew where they lived, their phone numbers, updated information. So these families are terrified now. They're scared of saying anything. After this voluntary claims program is set up, once they establish this fund, this voluntary claims program, Indiki Khan then go back to visit Epstein in jail with new papers to sign. They now get Epstein to sign new papers that amend his will and create the 1953 trust to do one main thing is to conceal the assets from being recovered by claimants. So if they get sued, to protect his assets from people who will come and sue them. But 2 days later, I don't know whether they told Epstein that was the plan, because once Epstein signed this amended will, signing over everything to Indiki Khan, the two lawyers sitting there, with Boris Nikolayk as an additional executor. I say Boris as the safety net, the only one he probably really trusted because they were really close just from the emails. Jeffrey Epstein is found dead, hanging in his cell under what most of us, including his brother Mark Epstein, think are suspicious circumstances. Remember, guys, I showed you that letter from Mark Epstein to the FBI saying Donald Trump had his brother killed, and also to the Donald Trump having his brother killed, Epstein killed. That I want to connect that, do a little quick connection to the victim witness testimony that we read earlier with the FBI, where she says Donald Trump was jealous of Epstein and that Donald Trump knew Epstein blackmailed people. Plus, then the brother's letter said that Epstein was about to name names and they knew. But if Epstein was about to name names, who would be the people to know? That would be his lawyer, who got him to amend his will, create a new trust, and sign all his properties over to them, and 2 days before he died. Now, why do I say that Boris was the one he trusted? Because Indiki Khan were the executors, while Boris was mentioned as the successor executor, meaning if anything happened that prevented Indiki Khan from being able to serve, Boris would then take over. Boris claimed he had no idea that this happened and he had no idea he was in the will at all. Could be believable because they went in, they signed it. He didn't have time to tell anybody before he was dead in his cell. I would think the idea came from his lawyers and his accountant to create this 1953 trust to protect his assets from all these greedy victims who are coming after him for money. And then he disappeared. Now, when Jeffrey Epstein died, his estate in August 2019 was valued between $577 million to $634 million. Making this man very freaking wealthy. Currently, in 2026, it is valued between 40 and 120 million. Let's do the high number. He went from $634 million estate to 120 million. Or if we're going to go on the lower end, his estate went from
$577 million to $40 million. Why a short time to spend that much money? So what happened? Now, why I say believe the universe is on our side for this, because unbeknownst to me, I just checked and found out the estate in Khan just settled a couple of lawsuits. By the way, currently there's no additional information that Boris received any monies directly, as he is the successor executor. Saying February 20th. Yeah, last week, couple weeks. Okay, so they just settled a $35 million class action suit to pay out to victims, and the estate also paid out an additional $49 million in settlements to pay out victims. That's Deutsche Bank, but that is not all. So right now they have the $35 million settlement. They have also have a USVI settlement for $105 million. Was supposed or is supposed to be paid for the RICO case. Now, this lawsuit, the class action suit, I do have papers for. The class action suit is also referenced in the original Epstein estate video that I did in November. But from that class action suit, they were accused of creating complex financial infrastructure to facilitate sex trafficking and to pay for silence. Denise George's RICO lawsuit. The other thing that USVI was coming for them on top of the $105 million for the trafficking is $80 million that they gained in fraudulent tax benefits. Now, the USVI also discovered some additional missing money. After Epstein died in 2022, Indy Khan created a new secret trust and moved $13 million out of the Epstein estate. Also, before he died, Epstein would have paid approximately, let's say 2011 to 2018, approximately 2019, $16 million to Indy and $10 million to Khan. No, in April of 2019, just before his arrest, Epstein moved or attempted to move $27.2 million to Morocco to buy a palace. Morocco doesn't have an extradition treaty with the United States. Then in July 2019, edging up to his death, Nikki and Khan each moved. It showed that Epstein approved. I don't know. He was in jail. Epstein approved $1 million to be sent to Indiki and Khan's personal accounts. Okay. Then the victim civil suits come out of the woodwork. Indiki and Khan advised Epstein the best thing to do is to create the 1953 trust and of a power of attorney, so he is not completely depleted and a pauper. August 8th, Epstein signs these papers. August 10th, Epstein is found dead in his cell. Richard D. Khan and Darren Indiki are now very wealthy men, estimated at over between $577 million to $634 million that they have gotten. Now it's 2020. Life is good. They are almost billionaires between the two of them. Epstein's money is shielded from all the victims. And then enter Denise. Denise blowing it all up, which brings us to where we are today. But how does Southern Trust Company come into all of this? And I will show you. And by the way, in addition to the $13 million and the $1 million pre-death bonuses that they gave itself before Epstein died, over $6.5 million was transferred and marked as suspicious from the Epstein Trust to either personal accounts or trusts that are run, owned, and managed by either Indiki Khan or their spouses. Now, where does Southern Trust come in? Southern Trust Company, the role of Southern Trust Company. Okay. So Southern Trust Company was used to open over 140 different accounts
for Epstein-owned entities, many of which existed only for one thing, and that was to move money back and forth. And $58 million came from Leon Black into Southern Trust Company. Remember, guys, we spoke about it. We have the video. It's used to open over 140 new different separate accounts that Indiki Khan then started moving money in and out of. How much money, you may ask? During the probate, just probate, after Epstein died, $39 million was already being moved around and laundered to entities, personal accounts, all managed by Indiki Khan. So that's how he went from $177 million to $40 million in that short time. Now we know the Southern Trust Company and Southern Trust International Bank, like many of other Epstein's companies and entities, was created for one thing and one thing alone, and that is to launder money. Now, enter Bill Gates. This is a contract that was signed in 2013. This is for consulting services in USVI to Alan Deluche in New York. So this is a consulting services contract for Southern Trust Company in USVI, and this was penned in May 2013. Years before his death. And I am just going to read us what matters to us right now is paragraph 2. And it states that you understand and agree that in connection with the consulting services, STC may disclose to you certain confidential and proprietary information regarding STC as well as its clients and business associates, including without limitation, Jeffrey Epstein affiliated trusts, partnerships, limited partnerships, and limited liability companies, and any other affiliated entities, and with Mr. Epstein. Leon Black and affiliated trusts, partnerships, limited partnerships, and limited liability companies of and any other entities affiliated with Mr. Black, including all entities which include in their legal name the word Apollo, which are affiliated with Mr. Black and are including Mr. Black's wife, Deborah Black, and all Mr. Black's children. $150 million Leon Black video is live. If you haven't watched it, catch it up. It is on the Unredacted Truth 2.0. Next, it goes on to read Mortimer Zuckerman and affiliated trusts, partnerships, limited partnerships, and limited liability companies of any other entities affiliated with Mr. Zuckerman. And last but not least, Bill Gates and affiliated trusts, partnerships, limited partnerships, and limited liability companies and any other affiliated. So, Mr. Gates, thank you, Gates, for bringing in Boris so I can let everybody know how this man allegedly, suspiciously faked his death in 2008. That brought us here, but that also gave us a chance to kind of refresh ourselves about the USVI cases, because I would like us to eventually get back into those actual victim transcripts, but we do have the case covered. So there we go. Now we know. So Epstein had Southern Trust in USVI as well as a bank to launder money. On some of those important clients that he helped to launder money through this were Bill Gates, as well as Leon Black and Mort Zuckerman. Laundering money through companies is something that I'm learning a lot of, like the use of trusts and the use of charitable donations to hide taxes. Taxes is something that I'm learning a lot about as I read the Epstein files, but I digress. Now that we've introduced Boris and Southern Trust Company, let's get into the juicy stuff. One of the hardest things I've had to do was to narrow down the scope of this week's episode. Because there's so much stuff, so much interest, so much crazy stuff. Anyway, shut up. I have selected a few-ish emails and categorized them
to try and paint a story for us. I've selected some emails that are gonna show us the relationship between Boris, between Epstein, Gates, and a few other people surrounding them in their little orbit. We are also gonna meet Sam. Sam's story goes to the USVI claim of marriages. We're gonna hear about Sam's relationship with Boris, Sam's relationship with Epstein, Sam's relationship with someone else that we know, Peter Thiel. On top of that, we're really gonna get into some crazy work drama that happened in 2013 when Boris first started working and partnering up with Gates, that happened between Boris, Melinda Gates, and Larry Cohen. This time, Jeffrey Epstein was not the problem. In this case, we also have some sneak peeks about when the boys let their hair down, more to do with Gates' relationship with Epstein, like trips that they were planning to show how close they were and how much he was entangled, stories from the Four Seasons, as well as stories from Crazy Horse. I did have Kimball and Krause, but we're going to save those for another show. I was supposed to be researching for Gates. I have separate content, because there's enough dense information for 3 more episodes. So this is all I'm going to be doing for the next foreseeable future. Now, let's start with introducing Boris and Epstein's relationship. But before we move into the emails and the shady stuff that happened when they thought no one was seeing, I want us to first touch on the Gates organizations, starting with Microsoft. Workplace misconduct investigations. The biggest scandal involving Gates directly relates to his time at Microsoft. In late 2019, Microsoft's board of directors hired to hire an external law firm to investigate claims that Gates had tried to start a relationship with one of his female software engineers in 2000. Oh my goodness, it just came to me. Because in March 2020, before the investigation was even done, turns out he had stepped away. Gates had stepped away from both the Microsoft board as well as Berkshire Hathaway board. Double checking the dates of divorce. Gates divorce. Getting Gates. So that was in 2021. And then the divorce was actually finalized. No, sorry. So in 2019, the board stepped up with claims about this female software engineer. And then in 2021, their divorce was finalized. But remember, guys, we heard about this engineer that once a year, I think that's the lady that he went away with once a year on vacation or something like that. And it was an arrangement between him and Melinda about this long-standing affair he had with his woman. If I remember correctly, in the news at that time, it had mentioned something about them being university sweethearts or something, but we all know stories get changed. Now, in March 2020, before that investigation had even commenced, Gates had to step down from the board from the boards of Microsoft and Berkshire Hathaway. Then in 2021, his wife divorces him. And then the shareholders also pass a resolution demanding a transparent, independent assessment of how the company handles sexual harassment and gender discrimination claims because of the lack of transparency surrounding the Gates probe. They knew he was getting investigated, and then he resigned. Nothing else in between. So that's just to do with Microsoft and Gates. Now let's move on to Cascade Investment, also called BMGI. Now this one is a private wealth management firm, and it holds Bill Gates' money and the funding for the Gates Foundation. We call this the Michael Larson allegations. An extensive investigation by the New York Times and others revealed widespread allegations
that Michael Larson, who managed Gates' money for nearly 30 years, was accused of making racist remarks, judging female employees on their physical attractiveness, showing his colleagues nude photos of women on the phone, and making sexually inappropriate comments. And on top of that, he also had a sexual harassment claim from 2017. What happened with the Larson allegation? Settled and signed airtight NDAs. By the way, all the people out there who are, why aren't the victims talking? Because these people have them sign tight NDAs with the settlements. But now that we're finished with Cascade BMG investments, let's move on to the Gates Foundation. Bill and Melinda Gates. There's a lot here. We have two categories of complaints: structural complaints and ethical complaints when it comes to the Gates Foundation. Guys, I was not crazy. And this is just like the surface of it. We don't even know what they're doing underneath. So, the first, conflicts of interest. The foundation has been criticized by public health experts for acting as an unaccountable monopoly force in global health. This foundation often heavily funds pharmaceutical research while simultaneously holding investments in those same for-profit companies like biomedics. Another thing was the foundation and Bill Gates have invested in not the greatest companies. Some of these companies are agricultural chemical companies criticized for multiple human rights violations while simultaneously funding health and climate initiatives. So, he has his hand in both cookie jars. He's fighting for the environment while investing in fossil fuel companies. He's going to feed Africa while heavily investing in chemicals, agriculture chemicals. He promotes vaccines for kids and polio, save the kids, because he is also invested in the same drug. We're gonna see in these emails that between 2014, Epstein really had a huge hand in the Gates Foundation, along with partnering up with Boris Nikolayk on a bunch of other trusts and funding vehicles, all of that coming up. In the emails, they were also trying to create an alternate fund, a philanthropy charity fund. But as they were talking about it, it sounds more like a tax shielding company for their wealthy friends, millionaires and billionaires, more than philanthropy. So you get taxes back or write off for charity donations when you do your income taxes. Some of these funds and organizations that Bill Gates and Epstein and Boris are creating were set up so rich investors, millionaires, billionaires, as Epstein wrote, they need to figure out how to get rid of some of their money to save them on taxes. What they would do is that they would pledge. So I am a billionaire and I want to write off, say, 300 million. What I would do is I would call my friends, I'll write up, contact Jeffrey and Bill or Boris, let them know, hey, got a few million that I want to tuck away with your charitable organizations, and that I will pledge to you 1% of the 100 million. You can put that in one of your other like charity organization, Africa AIDS, whatever that you have, and store the rest. Give me back my gift charity donation thing, charity receipt, so I could write it off. That's how it sounded. You guys are going to see the emails with me back and forth. So the accountants out there that know more, maybe you'll be able to correct me, but it just seemed like a gateway disguised for charity and philanthropy. Oh, by the way, Linda Gates left the foundation in 2021 after the divorce. What a good settlement. Now we get to what happened recently as of February 2026. Bill Gates has recently had his foundation. He called the Gates Foundation staff to apologize for the reputation damage his past actions have caused the organization. During this meeting, because of what the DOJ released that we're gonna see today together, some of them. He says that during this meeting, we touched on it last Sunday, during this meeting, he apologized. He said hindsight's 2020. He admitted to having 2 past extramarital affairs, and bridge player, and a nuclear physicist that Epstein had discovered and attempted to use as leverage against him. Gates said with his stuff that he never participated in or witnessed any of Epstein's crimes, but acknowledges that interactions with Epstein were a huge mistake. Now, let's see how accurate that is, because we got receipts. Let's start with this. Why I believe Boris Nikolayk actually did fudge up his Wikipedia page. It is because of emails like this. We know Jeffrey Epstein did the same thing for his own Wikipedia page. Just from the database search, remember I told you guys you can now search it. Just Wikipedia says, got the wiki editors to clean up your leading paragraphs. Here we have. Then we have, can you do something to change your Wikipedia entry? There is also this lovely email that says, hey Jeffrey, no point doing press releases until the tsunami of bad press. This is 2015. I got the Wikipedia editors to clean up your leading paragraphs. We also have this one that says, hey Jeffrey, I approved your Wikipedia text, not perfect, but much better. Especially the intro, I took out sex offender. Did they take out sex offender? Yes. In the intro, it doesn't say he is a convicted sex offender. It just nicely sanitizes it to say that he was convicted for soliciting a minor for prostitution. And did it say anything convicted? No. Just says that he was convicted of rather than calling him a convicted sex offender. Maybe that's why the email says not perfect, but much better, because it does that. He took out convicted sex offender. The other thing with the World Economic Fund, I am so sorry, ADHD, that I didn't show you for proof. So this is a 2013 meeting for the World Economic Fund, list of young global leaders. Search, we have BORIS, Mr. Boris Nikolayk, right there. And that is definitely not the only mention of Boris Nikolayk. World Economic thingy website. Did I see it? I want us to, there we go. Here we go. Search for people who we are. Let's put Boris. I didn't spell Boris right. Oh, yes, I did. There he is. In there on the search for him, we have Boris. The one I showed you was 2013. Oh, there he is. We have Boris here. Participants. This is 2013 as well. For his name, Strengthening Independent. Is that L? Asia. Okay, the second one is in East Asia, Scientific Advisor to Big BGC3. That is a company that he worked on with Epstein and Gates in addition to their DAF fund. As well, Young Global Leaders Annual Meeting for New Champions list Boris Nikolayk. So these are the few pages that they forgot to take him off of. Strengthening international cooperation, Boris Nikolayk. But before, guys, I kid you not, I showed you with the Canva, he had a full bio on the WEF, World Economic Forum page. Okay, now that we're done that, one more email. Why did I have this email? Maybe you can wait for that one. Okay, so we've done Boris. I've showed you the emails referencing Wikipedia, getting editors to do Wikipedia and change information on their websites. Next starts our timeline. And this is from 2010. 2 boys reminiscing about a relationship with a newly found friend who is currently under investigation. Peter Mandelson, let's hit it. This is Jeffrey Epstein and Boris in 2010. Jeffrey writes to his pal at 11:40 a.m. Awake? To which Boris writes, called you an hour ago from Zurich airport and left a message. I'm in the car from Zurich to Davos. Please speak later today. There's several big ears around me. Chief writer and editor of chief writer, editor of The Economist, and others. Hope you are well. Did you hear anything from Peter? To which Epstein writes, to his excited pal, yes, and he was thrilled to have made a new friend. To which Boris writes back excitedly, it is mutual. He is great. He is the only one who could emerge as a leader of labor. If anyone could pull it off, he could. However, he might be fed up with all of it. Still in the car. It is snowing. Boris. Then Jeffrey Epstein responds, unfortunately, he is the Lord Mandelson. No lord is allowed to be prime minister, and he can't resign the title. Food for thought. We learn something new every day. Boris writes, I was thinking the Lord can be PM. Was it him? Or so, Lord, and PM 45 years or so ago? Perhaps he was the Lord afterwards. I feel so bad for Peter. He came with this awful magazine that had him on the cover and 4 pages running stories, spreading lies and misinformation. I hate when people go into private lives. I guess you know better than most people. I'm stranded on the road due to snow and heavy traffic, and not so good, or more importantly, cute company. To which Epstein responds, no one from House of Lords. I told him, marry Princess Beatrice, because that is the only way to lose his title. To which Boris responds, that would have been an interesting move. He would need to do some explaining, I guess. But I guess we all see light sooner or later. Had no clue that no one from the House of Lords. This is real shame. Why did he ever accept the title? Epstein writes, he was removed twice from government in disgrace. When they offered him redemption, he grabbed it. Peter Mandelson, who is currently now under investigation because of Jeffrey Epstein's emails that came out, was previously removed from government in disgrace, and offering him a lordship that he could not decline was his way of redemption. That is insane. Then Boris responds to that saying, logical, but he should know better. He is a survivor and a fighter, would eventually get his way. Let's see how big of a fighter Mendelsohn is this time around. Maybe when we're doing Andrew's evidence, we'll do Mendelsohn and Tarjay. We can do all those together. Epstein responds, I'm sensitive when you or Peter suggest not leaving anyone behind. Elitist here? To which Boris says, did I ever suggest that? In a matter of fact, the opposite. Timing is another issue. Jeffrey responds, in fact, as I read it, you would take the opportunity to grab the leaders behind. Boris, I shouldn't laugh. These people are perverts. To which Boris responds, only if they're hot, winky face. So you're going to be able to see that a lot of their relationship had a lot of very sexual innuendos and talks. The boys are now preparing for a night out. It's time for a little kiki. Jeffrey writes to his good old buddy, hey, tonight? ? To which Boris responds, you bet. Hope you got energized. Pull in some interesting people. And then Jeffrey, the head planner, lets him know, I got you. Say get at 6 Hyatt Lobby. To which Boris responds, okay, now it's time for the kiki. Just be aware that I heard from a few people that the Zagat family, not very interesting. Epstein responds, Zagat is only for tinnitus, so he can make dinner reservations for you. Do you hear that, Zagat? Wherever you are, Zagat, they have Michelin star restaurants. It's like open table, basically. Looks like the Zagat guide, is it? Yeah. Oh my lord, I did not know the Zagat guide for Michelin star restaurants is no longer around. Look at this. It's gone. Well, color me shocked. 2007, 2000, with so many emails from Centurion, American Express cards, and it was just such a like throwback to those days of Aspire. Okay, so it looks like Zagat is closed. But now you know the only reason that they hung out with you, that Jeffrey Epstein ever hung out with you and brought you out, was so you could get them in restaurants. An hour later, Epstein writes to Boris, "On our way back." To which Boris responds, "Did you have fun? Question mark. Did you have stamina? Just in case I know of some drugs that can help." Epstein responds, "Only dust left." Right away, Boris says, "Are you done staring?" Epstein still had a lot more stamina to go. Maybe Boris was just trying to help out his pal and a friend. The longer these two are friends, the more vulgar and the more pervasive are the sexual jokes and innuendos. So this email is between Gary Kearney and Boris Nikolayk. Gary is an employee of Epstein. Now, this is in 2011. So the fact that he's sending him an email about the house makes me think that maybe he brought Boris in as kind of like assistant or intern, like, come and watch me, I'll be your mentor-mentee relationship. Saw him as worthy and then started connecting him. And then it went from there. And then they killed Boris and that's the point when they decided to kill him on Wikipedia so they could pass him off as more than he was. So this email says, in addition to the other emails from today, please coordinate Ian for the new relax room and Scott to wire up all. So it looks like it is a bunch of emails about house stuff. To which Boris responds, Gary got it. He knew what it meant. Boris responds, do not understand you email. What are you wiring up? A relaxation room? Are you taping an X-rated movie? To which Epstein responds, not for you. And Boris asks, still, can I get to see a home movie? Wink face. To which Epstein writes, do you mean a homo movie? They might have been a bit more of a relationship between Epstein and Boris. I don't know why. This is actually the first time that thought has come to my head since I collected all these emails. Isn't that absolutely insane? Next. Okay. Looks like Sam made a little bit of an earlier than anticipated appearance in our email chain. This is Sam. Sam appears to be a model who ended up getting married to Boris. Sam is who we were speaking about when I mentioned the divorce settlements. Stay tuned. So Sam writes to Boris in 2011. He writes, she's stunning. She just emailed me that she's leaving tonight and to check if I'm on her flight, but she's going to LA for one night, then to New York Sunday. I love her. To which once Boris receives this email from Sam, he writes to his good old buddy Epstein saying, Sam has a new friend. They got drunk last night. Something is telling me that nothing more happened. She is not a scientist, but I think you might still like her. In a matter of fact, she was a Victoria Secret Angel, so you might know her already. To which Jeffrey Epstein responds, she stayed at my apartment 6 years ago when she first came to New York, but you should have some bring her. She is great. Boris, impressed by his new mentor, you're quick. 6 years ago, I should know better. But when he said you're quick, he said, no, it didn't happen, did not have enough time, more than 20 minutes. Boom Boom Room is owned by my friend Andre. If Bill would like to go, tell me early so that we can have something set aside. When he says Bill, I am more inclined to lean towards Bill Gates because Boris and Bill Gates had a constant working relationship, as we're going to see moving forward. Not really Bill Clinton. I haven't seen any like Boris to Bill Clinton emails as of yet. Okay? So, and this is 2011, Boom Boom Room. Next email is to Jeffrey Epstein from Boris about unknown. unnamed. It's a response. And it just simply says, I forwarded him your email and told him that we are sending him a big cake with strippers inside. You're gonna see, like I said, guys, you're gonna see as we keep going, they just keep getting dirtier and dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. This one made me giggle. Jeffrey Epstein got rejected from the 2012 talk. So Boris writes to Wendy, I guess that is an assistant, CCing Richard Kahn, the accountant, and Jeffrey Epstein, saying, hey, Wendy, can you please help Richard with a transfer of one of our tickets to Jeffrey Epstein, to attend TED 2012. Thank you. To which Wendy responds, I guess Wendy is from the TED team. She just responds, hey, Boris, unfortunately, TED has declined your offer request because they do not feel Dr. Epstein is a good fit for our conference. Would you be able to let Jeffrey and Richard know? Thanks, bye. Thank you, TED Talks. After that, they let him in. But whoever was running TED Talks in 2012, clap. Hand clap to you for noticing he's a perv and not letting him into your TED Talks and protecting the young girls that went to TED 2012. So, after receiving this email, Boris then writes to his pal. So sorry, man. You really clashed bad with Chris. They are adamant about it. I tried everything. We'll tell you more. Going to sleep soon. We'll call you tomorrow, Boris. Went to small dinner and Redacted, invited Redacted and your Andrew. We had fun, more fun than Melanie and Andrew. Okay. So first email, once again, is from Jeffrey Epstein to Boris in 2012. Epstein writes, Sarah points out that I have gotten Sam a number of jobs, paid for his apartments, cleaning people, etc., has yet to send a thank you note, not even a cookie. They talked a lot of shit between people. I knew if I wanted the tea, look at the emails between Boris and Jeffrey Epstein. Straight up shit talking people all day, every day. To which Boris writes about Sam. Compared to you, I still fare worse. Not only no happy birthday, but also bad stuff. Jokes aside, I'm so sorry. I feel now horrible as this is my problem that I imposed to you. You have been nothing but an incredible friend and supporter. Thank you for all your help. I will have Sam leave the apartment in 2 weeks. Could do it sooner, but it would be a great help if it can wait. Since I arrived from Vienna, I barely slept. It has been beyond intense. Tomorrow, I leave LA, followed by Beijing and India. And I need to deal with this issue. I would prefer I deal with it when I return. He was always catching flights to lie about and play pretend physician, Harvard professor. Sam eventually married Boris. It appears that Sam and Boris were in a relationship while Epstein played sugar daddy to basically both of them. Didn't really need to play sugar daddy as much to Boris because he set Boris up with the whole new personality, new life, new identity, and paired him up with Bill Gates. And Boris eventually started his own thing. We'll get to it. But just to let you know a little bit more about Sam and Boris were in a relationship and eventually got married. Sin writes, was she good? No rush on Sam. Timing is for you, not me. To which Boris responds, you meant he? Okay, he? I was thinking that this is the question that you wanted to find out. Epstein says, is it a he or she, former he? I am sorry to all my amazing trans brothers and sisters out there. Do not mean to offend. I am just reading verbatim what Epstein is saying. Now, Boris writes to Epstein, I should let you discover and indulge. A former he, a number of surgeries to get it where it is today. Of interest, she is a very close friend with Peter Thiel, who is now leading financing for her venture. That's how you get it sometimes, ladies. We will also probably jump in. We'll tell you more. Okay, so until now, when I'm rereading this with a different eyes and perspective and mind, I thought they were talking about Sam because I was like, Sam sounds fabulous. I decided to Facebook stalk Sam. Sam didn't look like he was trans. Sam still looked like male. Now it seems that we are talking about somebody else who is a trans woman and being funded by Peter Thiel Pelletier. Epstein writes back to Boris, I still like him / her. And Boris writes, same here, I have a weak spot towards smarter people. Boris and Epstein also love to share girls in this subject line. Now with just subject line. Send me Eva's hot pics! Exclamation. I think she was married to Dubin at this time, so I don't know if he's talking about Eva Anderson or another Eva. Moving on is about Kimball's birthday party. This one email led me down a Kimball rabbit hole. We're gonna save the rest of the Kimball rabbit holes for later. We are going to pair the Musk boys, Kimball and Elon, with a few other people, Krause, and go through their correspondences. But why I picked this email was because of the name Maddie. We also have another Maddie, and that Maddie is the niece of Peggy Siegel. It seems at some point Peggy Siegel was basically shoving her niece into Epstein. Like, she kept taking her niece to dinners with Epstein. She asked Epstein to get her niece a job in Hollywood. She would write to Epstein about this poor girl all the time. And then at some point, it looks like her correspondence with her niece soured and her niece cut her off abruptly and she was panicking. Also messaging Epstein, and it's a lot of weirdness. Peggy Siegel, again, for that, I plucked that up. We're gonna put that to the side for later. But also coming to Kimball's birthday party, Nick Pritzker is a part of the Hyatt Hotel family. So it says Pritzker coming to Kimball birthday. Kimball, who's Kimball? Elon Musk's brother, Kimball Musk. So this one is from Boris Nikolayk to Epstein, and he's calling himself your Uncle Junkie. This again shows how close they were to each other. Before, he had an email calling Epstein his younger brother. Boris is much younger than Epstein. And now this email is, hey, could you please get a refill on the Ambien, your Uncle Junkie? On this note, I'm sure a few of you have seen stuff out there about Epstein and drugs, Epstein dealing drugs and drug trafficking. We just read that the girls were always given cocaine, and also throughout the Billionaires Playboy Club by Virginia Roberts, detail that Epstein would always give them Xanax. So they did have drugs around the girls. In the beginning, we've seen things about Epstein not wanting damaged girls, and that was like 1999, 2000s. In the beginning of his perversion, Epstein preferred to be the one to soil the purity of girls. So he would ask for and specifically request the girl next door, innocent girls. He didn't want anyone who was doing drugs. And remember also, when we're doing the 2005 police investigation, notes the one girl, the one masseuse who says she only got paid $100 and nothing happened, kept saying she wasn't his type because she was covered in tattoos. So he had a thing for little girls who look pure. It looks like as the years keep going, because this is now in 2012, he is loosening up. He went from not doing drugs, not wanting anybody doing drugs, pure girls, to everything goes with Epstein. Now, this next email I kept because it's on drugs again, but this time it's Provigel. They're sticking with the prescription drugs for now. Someone writes to Boris saying, hey, Boris, I have some Provigel to give you if you're still in Long Beach. I am at the Hyatt until tomorrow morning, and then we'll be in LA until Saturday night. What's the best time to get to you? Boris responds, what would make you think that I would ever take any drug? Just say no, I'm telling you. Wink face. There's a small problem. I am right now at the meeting for another 2 hours. I leave for LAX at 8 a.m. Thus, I would suggest that you keep it for now. I'll be in New York in 3 weeks or so, or just give it to Sam to keep it for me. Thank you, Boris. What is Provigel? Provigel is a prescription stimulant used to improve wakefulness in adults with excessive sleepiness from narcolepsy, shift work, a sleep disorder, or obstruct sleep apnea. Means, haha, you're hysterical, because obviously, so it seems Boris obviously does do drugs. Have a great trip wherever you're off to. I will leave it for Sam, and when I'm back in New York, it was great to see you. So this one is all redacted to and from. They seem to be able to get access to prescription drugs very easily. Makes sense, because we've all seen that Epstein had a gaggle of physicians and doctors around him, getting his doctor and physician buddies to write prescription drugs for him and his friends whenever they needed it, or for whatever they needed and wanted, on top of gynecologists for the victims to hide their dirty, dirty deeds. With this one, guys, is what co-conspirator, complacent language looks like. This is an email from Boris to Jeffrey Epstein in 2013. This email says, you should have some super sexy flight attendants on your flight. Make it a joke to show how GEE flies. Jeffrey Epstein was an open freaking secret. If you flew with Jeffrey Epstein, you knew what was going on. And now we go from creepy to creepier. Once again, Boris to Jeffrey Epstein. Please send me a few pics of your island, both the island and the house. Include some pictures of two hot girls, preferably nude or semi-nude at the island. Winky face. Goes even more creepier from Boris, still in 2013. So he never stopped. Boris writes to Jeffrey Epstein, how many girls are coming into LA every year? What is the turnaround? What does that email tell you about their relationship and conversation? Because it just sounds like straight up trafficking to me. How many girls are coming into LA every year? What is a turnaround? Pourquoi? Next email, and then we go into the Gates emails. Is that the same one? Okay, now this email was very confusing, a little creepy, a little bit scary. It legit sounds like Jeffrey is emailing himself a surveillance note on Bill Gates. There are some I really tried to see if I could actually get a non-redacted. I looked for two things when I'm searching for context of this email. I looked for either an unredacted version, because there's multiple versions of every different PDF and file, but the more you search, the more you find unredacted or weirdly redacted copies, so you're able to kind of like figure out what they're trying to say. But with this one, I couldn't find any unredacted versions of this email. The other thing that I tried to look for was to see if possibly it was a continuation in an email thread line. Could not find that for now. Maybe it is, and I just couldn't see it, but that's what I did. So this is all that we have, and it looks like it's the surveillance note on Gates. It reads, meet middle of lake, read books, picks her up at pier. Different piers on little boat with steering wheel. Makes Thai food hangar. Hangar space large and kitchen part of area on the side. Emails back and forth. Larry does not know. Larry, I'm guessing, is Larry Cohen, who is Gates' lawyer, or was Gates' lawyer. I'm not sure if he's still Gates' lawyer currently. Next, something C2 redacted. Meet at Four Seasons. Son with him in next room. Emoji. Larry doesn't know. Meet at Four Seasons. Son with him in next room. Sometimes tennis club. Everyone average age, supposedly to hit bald. Larry doesn't know. This is in 2017. This speaks to A, Gates' leverage and the two affairs. This speaks to Epstein's tendency for blackmail and stalking his friends, allegedly. Moving on. Now, I find the next email quite condemning. Judge for yourself. This email chain is between Boris and Bill Gates. Seems they're planning a trip to Paris together. This email is in 20. Boris asks Bill Gates if he's ever been to the Crazy Horse in Paris. It's amazing. It is on my bucket list. Says it is one of those erotic, scale, elegant shows. It is fun if you've never been. It's a burlesque show. Goes on to say tomorrow night they have a performance starting at 10:45 p.m. Our dinner goes through to 10 p.m. and it is in the best hotel. Crazy Horse is only 5-minute walk from our hotel. The performance lasts only for an hour. To which Bill writes, I'll be too tired to do this and wouldn't want to take the risk. I would have done it when I was younger, but I will skip it this. What does that mean? I will be too tired to do this and I wouldn't want to take the risk. Risk how? What kind of risk? You're going to a show. What risk? I would have done it when I was younger, but I will have to skip it this time to take the risk. Boris responds, I understand in response to the busy schedule, early waking up, and jet lag. Crazy Horse became such a mainstream attraction that it would not be that risky. But no problem, I canceled it. See you tomorrow. What I'm wondering is what is so risky about Bill Gates going to the show at his age in 2013? And after that weird ass exchange, Boris immediately sends an email to Jeffrey Epstein saying, this is pretty bad and may have been the cause of her bad mail in Paris. This makes more sense. I can't tell you how many times I read and reread this email. Boris, the physician, immunologist, gene expression doctor, sucks at spelling because he's a fashion designer turned bootleg doctor. But I think he means male as in male man. So he should have spelled it MALE in Paris. The email reads, this is pretty bad and might have been the cause of her bad mail in Paris. This makes more sense. Does that mean that Bill was someone's bad mail experience in Paris? And also remember the 2020 FBI email that we read about questioning whether they had anything about Bill Gates in there, as well as the other things that he was facing in Microsoft and his company. Has that wrapped it up? Did I wrap it up? 2013. Big Cake and Strippers, we saw that together. Homo movie, we've seen that. The last one now that I want us to look at is later on in years. This is an email between Boris and Epstein when they're in Paris. What Boris is writing to Epstein, ask him to confirm something. So Epstein responds, yes. Boris then writes to Epstein, thank you, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. And you have girls from Crazy Horse there, wink face. To which Epstein provides Boris then the door code and says, they just went to sleep. And this is in Paris at 11 a.m. in the morning. It looks like Epstein did have some in when it came to Crazy Horse. I almost said does, but he did. Next email to do with Crazy Horse that I thought very interesting appears to be from a girl who works at the place. Okay, that's why. All right, so that doesn't matter. Okay, so my hesitation there was that there are copies of this exact same email, but the name here is not redacted. So, but I'm just going to keep it redacted for privacy. So this email, victim privacy, this email is from a woman. It's to a woman from Epstein, and he's telling her that he's going to the movies with another woman, lady, girl, not sure. We just have a name, and you're invited. To which she responds, what movie? And he lets her know that it's Robert De Niro. Then Epstein writes to this woman, do you want to talk about your future job? I may be able to help, no promises. He's very predatory in this email, FYI. To which she responds, when should we talk about? Sure. He offers tomorrow 11:30. They go back and forth. To which they finally then writes to her later. I'm thinking later that night because the last email is at 5:40 p.m. 5:44 p.m. So Epstein writes to her, if I get free later, do you have time? Say at 9. I can get, at 8. So she then responds, we have no idea what happens until the next day, which is November 12th. At November 12th, 6:08, she then writes to Epstein, okay, that's fine. Crazy horse? Question mark. And then Epstein writes to her, are you coming? Then the next email is, I will be at the Ritz and leave the Ritz around 7:30. So it looks like they're talking about meeting. He lets her know that he will be on the terrace with the head of Stanford psychology department. Next email correspondence is this woman asking Epstein, you are so amazing. I had a crazy great time yesterday. I hope your dick is fine after all that sucking. I guess you got the job? Next crazy horse email is, now I am not sure if this is the same lady or not, but Epstein writes to her, sorry, it didn't work this time. Again, this is in Paris. And she writes, okay, I was exhausted last night. I have training this afternoon at the Crazy, and I have a great meeting with the woman who rent me the apartment to give her the keys at 8 p.m. What about going to see the Crazy Horse Show on Wednesday night? So with this email, because she said, I have training at the Crazy, this makes me believe that this lady works at the Crazy Horse. Someone who they met at the Crazy Horse. And remember, we just read Boris asking Epstein with a winky face if you have the Crazy Horse girls there. From then, they go back and forth in discussing when he will meet and pick up something from her. He ends up staying in Paris another day. And I believe that now brings us to the end of the Crazy Horse emails. A lot of these men, these friends and these clients, now that they're being caught and the truth is out, everyone is denying being close to Epstein. No one flew on Epstein's plane. They're all back. No one knows about the Lolita Express. No one had a close relationship with him. Everyone says he was a scammer. I just let you guys know earlier about Bill Gates saying like Epstein used him for leverage and was an untrustworthy man. Blah, 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 blah. Now we pivot to a tragic love story about two boys. Two boys wanted the world and the devil who said he could give it all. Mr. Epstein liked jokes and thought himself to be funny. I'm also quite exhausted, so we'll see how delirious I am. So it says, this is a joke. This is a joke. Could you guys notice the closer we get to the end of the episode, you can see how drained I am. A cabbie picks up a nun. She gets into the cab and notices that the very handsome cab driver won't stop staring at her. She asks, my tongue's not working anymore, but I'm pushing through. Okay, a cabbie picks up a man. A cabbie picks up a man. A cabbie picks up a man. I'm gonna go, I don't know, slap myself, do something, and then come back and finish the rest of this.